Okay, today we're checking out some new paddles from one of my absolute favorite pickleball companies called KiwiLabs. They're based out in Michigan and they released one of my top all-time paddles way back when I first started reviewing called the Slice. I absolutely love this tennis-inspired paddle and it's always a pleasure to hit with whenever I pull it out of my bag. If you haven't watched my review on it, you definitely should. In fact, I might actually revisit this paddle in another video as I believe the Slice has gotten a few updates since that upload. Let me know down in the comments if that's something you'd like to see. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we're checking out one of KiwiLabs' latest paddles, the Circuit, which comes in both 14 and 16 millimeter thicknesses. But what makes these things so special is that they're Gen 3 paddles, but done in a super unique way. And we're going to talk all about that. But first, I want to let you know KiwiLabs is letting me give one of these babies away for free, so be sure to stick around until the end of the video to see how to enter. But if you want a head start, you can go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell. And then I also want to let you know I'm working on a video of my favorite pickleball accessories, so that's another reason to subscribe because you really won't want to miss that. And if you want a sneak peek, I've got a list down in the video description of a lot of the gear I've been testing out, as well as a link to all my favorite pickleball gear you can find on Amazon. On top of that, I'll leave a link to this t-shirt from one of my new favorite clothing brands called Into the AM. Promo code MatthewK will get you a discount with them. And they've got a ton of cool clothing from graphic tees to athletic apparel and are definitely worth checking out. And with all that out of the way, let's talk specs. I want to start with my favorite of the two, the 14 millimeter version. It is of course a 14 millimeter paddle, it's hybrid, the face is T700 carbon fiber with a high spin fabric peel apply. It's thermoformed unibody with hand injected edge walls. And on Kiwi's site, they explain that the edge foam is a bit different than what we typically see. Theirs is described as being soft but dense and is supposed to give you a more solid feel when you make contact with the ball. As for the core design, this is a Gen 3 paddle with what they're describing is a dual layer foam, which is, quote, an extra layer of super soft foam inside the honeycomb cells at the top half of the paddle. And we're going to talk more about that in a bit. It's a 16.4 by 7.5 inch paddle. The grip length is 5.5 inches. The grip circumference is 4.25 inches. The average weight is 7.8 ounces. The advertised swing weight is 112. The advertised twist weight is 5.9. There is a 5-month manufacturing defects warranty, but be sure to register if you don't buy it on their site. There's a 21-day no questions asked return window, and the price is $135 after you use promo code MatthewK for a 10% discount. And this paddle is USAP approved. And then they also offer the Circuit in 16 millimeter as well with super similar specs. Okay, first I want to say up top that I love this paddle. The feel is super solid, but with a ton of power you can access whenever you want. And I love that KiwiLabs is always pushing the envelope and embracing experimentation. They've done this since they first started, and this new paddle is a real home run in my opinion. It's super unique and is Kiwi's take on Gen 3. And for anyone unfamiliar, Gen 3 is a pretty loose term that I use to describe a paddle that goes through the thermoforming hot press construction process that Gen 2 paddles go through, but Gen 3 paddles have cores that have been manipulated or enhanced in some way, typically with foam. And for the Circuit, Kiwi changed up how they did the edge foam and are using something they describe as soft but dense foam, seemingly different from the edge foam we typically see, which is supposed to make hits feel more solid. And to me, it's doing exactly that. On top of that, they are injecting what they describe as, once again, super soft foam directly into the cells of the honeycomb at a section near the top of the paddle's head. And that, more than anything, is why I call this paddle Gen 3. It's actually super similar to what Nexus is doing with their ProStar, which I reviewed a while back. Except Kiwi is being super targeted with where they're injecting cells with foam, rather than doing all the cells of the honeycomb like Nexus. This is a strategy we've actually seen in some of the Heads paddles as well. And Kiwi's intent with this design was to create a Gen 3 paddle that had that power boost but was super manageable. In fact, for a while they advertised this paddle as Gen 2.9, so folks wouldn't get the wrong idea and think it was a bazooka that would blast balls into the parking lot. Instead, they want the power assist of Gen 3 construction, but still allow players to utilize it for whatever style of play they want. I talk a bit about how super hot paddles can sometimes force you to shape your game around the paddle and its power in my recent Chorus Fire video, so be sure to check that video out if you haven't. And like the Chorus Fire paddles, Kiwi is threading the needle between power and control really well in my opinion. And that's a good transition to how these paddles play and feel. Well, if you've been watching this channel, you probably already know I'm a control leaning player. However, the last few months, I've had to dip my toe a bit into the banging world as I've been testing out a number of power paddles lately, and I mean some super powerful ones. And I talk a lot about how pickleball as a sport is changing and getting faster and harder hitting in my paddle tech video from a while back for anyone curious. And to be honest, I think companies have really been chasing power and tech that has ultimately been either half-baked or super niche and really suited for only one kind of play style. So you really have to know what kind of game you want to play today as well as tomorrow when you pull the trigger on some of these newer releases. However, I'm happy to say Kiwi approached things differently. They've adopted new tech and increased the power of their paddles without throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Once again, they initially called this circuit Gen 2.9 to highlight that they were approaching these paddles differently than early Gen 3 paddles that were coming out after the OG Gearbox Pro PPE, which kicked the whole power tech race off and kind of inadvertently ended up starting a chain of events that have really shaken the foundations of pickleball to its core. But I know for a fact that Kiwi took their time bringing a Gen 3 paddle to the market because one of the owners, Larry, has a whole YouTube channel dedicated to documenting the behind the scenes process of running a pickleball company. And he talked all about this during the whole Yola debacle. And in my eyes, that patience has really paid off because their take on Gen 3 is one of my favorites. While you can access a ton of power, especially on bigger swings, every hit, no matter your power input, whether it be a huge drive or the softest of dinks, feels super secure and predictable. I think that has a lot to do with the build being a little denser with some of those cells being filled and with that unique edge foam. But none of the enhancements are so over the top that the paddle feels like a bag of sludge. Instead, you get super pleasant pocketing of the ball and can shape all you want with Kiwi's unique surface treatment. And there's no crazy catapulting going on, in my opinion. It's very familiar, but with a boost. As for the differences between the 14 and the 16mm versions, I like them both. The 16mm definitely has more power on big swings. However, the 14mm edges the beefier version out on hand speed. The 14mm is the one I ended up preferring, although it did take me a bit of time to get used to the 14mm's feedback. It was kind of harsh at first, but I think that about all thermoform 14mm, to be honest. And I'll add that I eventually found myself really enjoying the feel of the 14mm once I broke it in a bit, or maybe I just got used to it, which is not something I can say about other thermoform 14mm, which I tend to think feel unsettling no matter how long I play with them. And I imagine all this has something to do with how Kiwi utilized the foam. And I should also note that my 16mm was a used unit, so it might have been broken in by the time I got it. So it could very well have had that same harsh feel as the 14mm before it was broken in. It's just that somebody else did the breaking in. As for value, I think $135 after promo code MatthewK is pretty much a steal. That's $45 less than the new Gen 3 paddles from Pickleball Apes that utilize a similar approach, and a few bucks less than the new Saga line coming from Vatic. And that's after taking into account discount code MatthewK for those other companies as well. As for KiwiLabs, promo code MatthewK also works for their overgrips, which are super nice. After that discount, you can get a pack of 4 for less than $6, and that's a really good value. They're super durable with a good grippy feel without being super tacky or gummy. So if you don't have an issue with sweaty hands and are looking for something that's a bit grabby but still super comfortable, these are some to check out. To me, Kiwi seems super focused on keeping prices low on their new releases, and I think their patience and way of bringing paddles and new tech to market really solidifies my claim that they belong in that special tier of paddle companies that are both innovative and affordable that I discussed in my Neonic breakdown video from a while back. I really do think they're a company worth supporting with a purchase. And before we get into the giveaway details, I also wanted to talk about today's featured accessory. Today's accessory is actually a cleaning wipe for your paddle from a company called GatorStrike. And while the topic on how to best clean paddles is a little divisive, especially amongst reviewers and pickleball gearheads, here's my take, which I've talked about before on the channel. For carbon fiber face paddles, but not ones with spray-on grit, a normal paddle eraser will do the job really well. You can get those just about anywhere, and I'll be sure to include a link in the video description. Those big chunks of rubber are excellent at grabbing all the little bits of plastic and dirt that get stuck to your paddle face as you make contact with the pickleball and then peeling it all away really well, leaving your paddle looking super fresh. Unfortunately, those are not a good choice for paddles that don't utilize raw carbon fiber faces. For paddles that use spray-on grit, an eraser can actually damage the face and texture. And while some folks disagree with me, I personally do not recommend erasers for paddles with Kevlar or titanium faces either, because you risk damaging your paddle if you have the bad luck of getting a loose thread on your face. I've actually experienced this with a Kevlar paddle before, and while some folks argue that the peel ply layer of those paddles is just like that on raw carbon fiber face paddles, and loose Kevlar or potentially titanium threads are just the result of a manufacturing problem, that knowledge does little to help you out if you have the misfortune of having a paddle that has a defect with a thin spot of peel ply with a thread poking out. If an eraser happens to grab that thread, you'll very likely damage your paddle even more. And while you might be able to warranty it, that's going to be a lot of hassle, and I'm betting a lot of companies won't be too excited to help out in that event as well. So I personally recommend using a different cleaning method than an eraser on basically any paddle that isn't raw carbon fiber. And I think these GatorStrike wipes do the job really, really well, and they also work on carbon fiber paddles too. And for me, I've got some OCD tendencies, so I appreciate how these wipes are safe for your hands and do a really good job of getting them cleaned up after you've been sweating and before you drive home. Plus, compared to paddle erasers, you can use the GatorStrike wipes to clean your paddle's handle, your shoes, glasses, whatever. So that convenience and multi-use factor is a huge deal in my opinion. As for value, a pack of 50 is on sale right now for $5, and then promo code MatthewK knocks the price down to $4. So they're super, super cheap, and one pouch is going to last you a long time. I highly recommend giving them a try. Also, if you've used these or another paddle cleaner before, please comment down below what you think about them. As for the circuit giveaway, all you need to do is like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment which version you're most excited about and why, and then fill out the Google form in the description so I have a way to contact you if you win. That's it. I'll run the raffle in about a month, so be on the lookout for an email. Good luck. And that's all I've got. KiwiLabs has been one of my favorite pickleball companies ever since I started playing, and I'm stoked to see they're doing things their own way and that it's paying off. I really do think they're a company worth supporting, so definitely give their lineup a look. Finally, if you found this review helpful, please consider using promo code MatthewK on your next paddle purchase to help support the channel. I have a lot of the popular brands listed below, and my master list has even more, and probably a few you haven't heard of. And I'll be sure to leave a link for a KiwiLabs site at the very top. Don't forget to use promo code MatthewK to get that 10% discount. You can also support the channel by purchasing some of the cool pickleball gear I've been testing out by using the links and codes in the video description below. I also have a link to my favorite pickleball gear you can get on Amazon down there as well, and that's got some really cool hidden gems you wouldn't expect. And then of course, hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel, and then slamming that notification bell all go a long way to helping me out as well. Thank you so much for the support. But most importantly, I hope you get to pickle soon, and just don't forget, it's about having fun.